So this is the LibTech Lost Under the Pretty Lights. It's been a fun board. I love owning it. I love having it in my quiver. It's got a lot of great things going for it. It can be a tapered directional kind of free ridey board, but it's not really unforgiving. It's not going to throw out a lot of consequence if you get off your game. And anybody from like maybe even a beginner, if you want to spend that much money, to an advanced expert rider can have fun on this, and it's forgiving. If you're an advanced expert rider and you want to get off your game sometimes or try new things, this is a great choice as opposed to maybe some boards that are like mostly camber, like the GNU Molaire. That's got more carving power and dominance. And like this amazing, like aggressive pop, but this is just so much more forgiving all day in comparison. And like that Molaire can catch an edge much easier. So this is just kind of like that round nose fish surfboard. That surfboard. I had, the first time I tried my buddies, I couldn't believe how it could do so many different things. It could kind of float and kind of hang in there with the kind of short, fat twin I was riding in kind of small, gutless surf, and float way better than you would think. But then on top of it, it could, snap, it could surf vertical in the pocket and hit lips. And it was just a really fun all-around board. And so is this. It does so many different things. It's got a nose a little longer than with a little more volume than the tail. There's 10 mil of taper there. It's got 2 inches setback on board, on side cut, not board. 2 inches setback on side cut, and it's got, like, on paper it looks very directional, very like washy and surfy. But then you get it out on snow and it doesn't feel that way. You can take it switch, you can butter with this. You've got a free ride board, but with a strong mountain freestyle aftertaste. So it's kind of a hard board to define, but it's definitely probably a free ride board first. And let's take a look at the camber profile too. You can see it's got a little bit of this, like it can be a little auto spinny. It sometimes wants to kind of, just if you're flat basing or one footing, it's just gonna kind of 1 foot off the chair, a little weird. And in hard snow, in softer snow, it just stabilizes and acts, differently. So it's got kind of a little different personality depending on the conditions, but it's something very easy to get used to. Then let's take a look at this edge hold here. It's very interesting. It doesn't have a very aggressive magnet traction. It's so ever so subtle. It's there and I can see the bumps, but it's so mellow. It's just so taken back. And if you look this way, you can barely see it as well. But it's just such a mellow disruption. So it really, if you've been put off by, let's say, like full aggressive mag, like on the TRS or the Travis Rice, like Orca or something like that, that just really grips. This is like, I think this is like 0.25 mag, where, like the TRS and T-Rice is like full mag. And then there's like 0.5 mag that's on a lot of boards. And this is even less than that, so it doesn't really grab that well. It's kind of a cool thing. And then another thing I love is when you lay this down, I forgot to point out, let me pick off that little, it's got a nice kinked tail, so it does ride a lot better switch than you would think for this cutout. It looks like it's gonna be scary, but it's not. It's quite kinked, and it works really well switch. I couldn't believe it. But let's get into, setback on board versus setback on side cut. We said there's, 2 inches of setback on side cut. And, when set all the way back, you're looking at 22. But if you want to talk, narrowest stance, you're looking at like 19.5 with traditional discs. And just about 24 all the way out. But 22 stance with is great for personally for me for powder riding. So I love that I can set it all the way back. But I love this board before I knew that. 23 inches. Here's the difference between nose and tail, and we're going to do it two ways because of this chop. So from here, kind of like more like a traditional board, if this were full, it would be 17. And what did I say? 23. So we're looking at, yeah, just about 23. Kind of in between 23 and a quarter and 23 from my nose measurement. So that's 6 inches difference between nose and tail. And then the true setback on board versus the setback on side cut is just about 3 inches. So you're getting an extra inch versus setback on side cut. So it's not a massive amount, but still, you know, 3 inches like true setback on board, or a 6-inch difference between nose and tail is a lot. And so there's going to be a lot of directional float. You know, you've got the 10 mil taper, you've got this rocker, you know, so you've got this easy floating rocker. You got this nice nose that really, you know, floats well and doesn't kink up too much. And then you've got the chop right here in the tail. Now let's talk about, because it's kind of just not like, you know, maybe 3 because of this chop. There's so little volume here that you could technically measure from here. I would say it's probably somewhere in between, but 14 and 23 is, geez, that's 9. So it's 6, and I think I said 23, right? And yeah. So that's 9, just a little bit more than 9 inches back, or 9 inches difference between nose and tail. So 4.5 inches back on board. And that's probably a little more accurate given how little volume is past here. Maybe it's somewhere in between. That's kind of what I think. I think it's more somewhere in between. But then you're looking at 4.5. So it's kind of somewhere between 3 and 4.5. It's probably like 3.5, maybe 4. But that's really cool, and that's what makes this a fun board to float and powder. Love this all black base. Don't like this little die cut in the middle here, but it looks cool. Looks really cool, but it's not fun to repair. I'd love it if it was just all black with like a little like lib in the nose and a little like mayhem right across the tail here. So that way, because these areas have a tendency to hit rocks off-piste. But all in all, man, this is just such a fun board. I'm so glad I have it. I'm so glad I'm keeping it. And I'm gonna, you know, use this to compare other boards for the, you know, for 2019 season for sure. And hopefully others if it sticks around. I'd love to keep riding this and learn how it evolves.